All right, YouTube, we're live now. This is K2 Karama, and I welcome you to the Philosopher's Stonecast. This is episode number 4. I'm pretty sure somebody will join eventually and watch us, or maybe not, but we'll see. Just want to make a quick disclaimer that there's going to be like bad language and stuff, so.
Oh no!
just to let you know. All right.
Trip anybody's triggers.
Yeah, watch out for your triggers. So this is the Philosopher Stonecast, where we talk about anything and everything. So this podcast, today's podcast, is going to be about guns and politics. I just want to go over some stuff. So it's been a while since we've done our last podcast. I believe it's been about 2 weeks. So we're a little bit behind on the news, but I do want to talk about that shooting that happened in California and what you guys' thoughts is. Also, before I get started, I just want to introduce Ape, or AKA Justin here. And I will also want to introduce our other guest, Spike. All right, let's get started. Let me pull up this.
I wanted to tell you, you made me think of like some kind of joke. Whenever you said guns and politics, I thought about how much more interesting politics would be on C-SPAN if like all of the peaceful people in the House and the Senate were carrying guns.
All right, so can you see this right here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to play the video and then we can talk about it real quick.
And good evening. As we come on the air along the West Coast, we're following breaking news out of Southern California. 2 suspects are dead in a shootout with police following a massacre in San Bernardino. 1 woman and 1 man whose sources in multiple agencies say may be Saeed Farouk. A 3rd person has been detained, but at this time it is unclear what that individual's involvement in this may have been. And as we speak, police are at a home not far from the scene with a possible link to the suspects. All of this follows a mass shooting hours earlier at a building that houses a center for the developmentally disabled. At least 14 people were killed there and at least 17 others injured. We have extensive coverage of this breaking news. Let's get right to NBC's Miguel Almaguer for the latest. Miguel?
Lester, good evening. We're at the original crime scene where those 14 people were killed, but as you can see on your television screen, just some 6 miles away from here, still a very active police situation. A short time ago, we saw a heavily armored vehicle piercing what appeared to be a residential home and then sending in a robot, potentially to look for explosive devices. Lester, it's been a day of fluid developments. It all began here just at 11 o'clock this afternoon. Police telling us 3 people walked into a building and then began to open fire.
Shots heard in the area 1365 South Waterman.
A massive emergency response just after 11 a.m. Chaos and carnage.
We have at least 20 victims.
The first early call, an active shooter or shooters moving through the Inland Regional Center, a government building.
We do have some preliminary numbers of upwards of 14 people that are dead.
Male in black clothing, he's still firing rounds.
As police moved in to clear the building, room by room, victims poured out. School buses used to evacuate hundreds. An intersection turned into a triage center.
Blankets for the north side.
SWAT teams swarmed the area as the walking wounded staggered to safety.
Be cautious of who's coming to you. Make sure their hands are up.
Stretcher after stretcher after stretcher, wheeling out the most critical. Some victims loaded off of the back of pickup trucks to waiting ambulances, then rushed to the hospital. Anxious families arrived on scene, waiting to hear about loved ones.
I'm really scared for my sister. She just said there was a shooting. She's scared. She's hiding in the closet with 2 other people.
They locked the door. That's all that I know. That's all that she told me. And then we stopped talking because I didn't want her to talk anymore.
Police heard from witnesses there were 3 gunmen, all said to be heavily armed, wearing masks and body armor.
She saw a guy dressed in all black, had a mask with a big gun.
They fled in a dark SUV. A suspicious device may have been left behind.
We have some type of device coming out, so I need everybody down over there.
The Inland Regional Center, 60 miles north of Los Angeles, provides social services to individuals with development disabilities. It's a sprawling 3-story building with a staff of more than 670, servicing thousands. Just yesterday, the scene of a holiday party.
All my sergeants be advised that San Bernardino PD then a shootout with an SUV. After being fired through an SUV.
Tonight, the manhunt for the gunman moved 2 miles away when police engaged the suspects in a black SUV.
We have 2 suspects that are dead at the scene. One is a male, one is a female.
All of Southern California on high alert as the drama unfolds. A recap on the numbers: 14 people are dead, at least 17 are injured, including a police.
Okay, I think we got the idea from that video there.
I guess, yeah. I mean, some folk went up in a place and shot some people up.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. I think it's
like this is the first one. It's not going to be the last one. I mean, we just, you know.
You said that there was because it was a work-related thing?
Sort of.
Or what was that
like
about?
They are discovering like possible ties to terror groups, but yeah.
Well, you know, who the hell shoots up a place with a bunch of mentally disabled people?
I mean, they work, or her husband at least worked there, from what I understand.
Well, what I understood on the work-related tip was that someone had said some mean things about Islam, and he got all pissed off about it and went and grabbed a bunch of guns and his girlfriend and went back and shot the place up. I mean, that's just kind of insane either way you look at it. Whether, you know, and this is kind of where I get, you know, with my viewpoint is, even if you could get rid of all the privately owned guns, you're still going to have unstable people like this running around. Now, of course, obviously, I don't advocate for getting rid of privately owned guns. In fact, I think that should probably be expanded, because one thing that I've noticed with all of these mass shootings that's a constant is they always happen in places where there are unarmed people. I mean, this never happens at a gun range. This never happens at a police station. As much as they're touted as being evil in the media, they never happen at a gun show or an NRA rally. I mean, let's be honest here.
Well, why would you bite the hand that feeds, though?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if that's where you're getting your guns, why shoot the place where you're getting your guns up?
Well, none of these mass shooters have bought their guns at gun shows. And very few, if any, have even bought their guns privately, because the gun show loophole, or supposed gun show loophole, is like, let's say you have a gun and you want to sell it to your buddy, okay? You don't have to run a background check to sell it to your buddy. I mean, you probably know your buddy better than the government does. But
know where your buddy sells the gun to?
Knowing what?
What if your buddy sells the gun?
Well, that's on him. But the fact of the matter is, the reason they did that is because the NICS system, which is where all the background checks are ran through, is not open to the public. Like, let's say you wanted to sell your buddy a gun, right? You can't just go to the NICS website and run his name and see if he's clear to purchase the gun. I mean, if they could do that, then universal background checks wouldn't be such a bad thing. Mm-hmm. The problem right now, though, is you are requiring someone to go through a federally licensed firearms dealer to do it, and they're going to want money to perform that service. I might also add that the shooting in California, all those guns were legally purchased in California.
Yeah.
And California, I was just watching a video today that had mentioned this offhand, but in some regards, the gun laws in California are actually more strict than the Canadian laws. So, I mean, it's not like they don't have laws in place already to try and prevent this.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it didn't really prevent it. In fact, a lot of mass shootings have happened in California. But if you look at, like, say, where I live in Michigan, right, the last public mass shooting we had was in 1991. and that was a post office. Someone walked in, someone had got fired from the post office, walked in and shot the place up. The kind of classical mass shooting of going post.
I'm pretty sure that's where that term came from.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we haven't had one since 1991, and that's the only one that we've had. And I mean, we're not the most lax state in the country, but we're nowhere near the strictest either. I mean, if you can pass the background check, you get a permit to carry.
Yeah.
Here, whereas California, if the sheriff doesn't like you, you're not getting your permit.
Yeah. Well, damn.
And that's even with Detroit, which Detroit is really high crime. And in fact, it's so bad that the police chief in Detroit has been telling people that can legally get the permit and carry. But the police response time in Detroit's like 4 hours too. So that has a lot to do with it. I mean, they can't get to the crimes.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
So the other guy who just came in here, his name is Stefan. He's another friend of mine. I think he may be driving right now. Maybe.
Yeah, man, I'm here. I'm sorry, but I'm sure there's a shit ton of road noise right now. I'm on the highway. I was just trying to creep until I got it down.
Yeah.
I hear you, fine.
Yeah.
I can't tell. It probably sounds like shit on your end, doesn't it?
It sounds alright.
I mean, can you hear yourselves, or does it do a good job of ducking it?
It ducks it.
We can hear you, we just can't see you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Here, I'll just turn off the camera. How about that?
Works fine. So what are your thoughts on the whole guns and politics and possible gun control, if not?
Well, my complication is that I'm not as well informed on this topic as I'd like to be. I obviously have mildly strong opinions, but I don't know what current regulations look like. I'm not a gun owner myself. I've never tried to purchase a gun. I know in Kansas it's stupid fucking easy to come across literally any weapon of war that you could possibly want, right? Like out here, I trip across assault rifles every day. It's not because, I mean, you know, coyotes and stuff, right? But I feel like the entire gun control debate, not to detract from it because I think it's worthwhile, I think it does a really bad job. Damn, this noise is terrible. I think it does a really bad job of detracting from what I think is a far more important discussion, which is that of, like, mental health, right? Like, obviously, radicalization is a thing that happens largely because these communities are ignored by public health, because these communities are excluded by society in general, and I feel like these attacks would happen far less often if we had a better job of catching these people in nets, if we had a better job of ensuring these people see therapy, and ensuring that these people are happy and healthy and safe, right? Nobody picks up an assault rifle if they are fucking content, right? That just doesn't happen. Something has to break in order for it to happen. Either you're radicalized by bullshit from overseas, you're suffering in your community because you're ostracized because of your choice of religion, or, I mean, like, something else broke, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a wider mental health safety net would do a much better job of preventing these attacks than anything we could do gun control-wise. Yeah, we should reduce the amount of guns available to people. We should especially reduce the amount of Barbie doll guns in order to fucking counter the weapon fetish that the United States has. But that, it pales in comparison to the effects that we could have if our country was just happier and, like, had more wealth available to those who needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you know, my thought about that, prior to 1980, we had no background checks whatsoever. That wasn't even a thought. The only thing you needed to buy a gun was to prove that you were 21 or over. Didn't matter if you were a felon, didn't matter if you were a domestic abuser, none of that mattered. As long as you were of legal age, you could walk into just about any store, buy your firearm, and buy the ammo. Public mass shootings were extremely rare in the 70s, or, well, extremely rare prior to 1980. So, to me, access and the amount of guns that are out there, I don't think play as much into it as people think.
not sit here and
I mean,
pretend that our ability to access weapons in 1980 is equal to our ability to access weapons in 2015. I can hop up on a forum right now and get access to like 5 different kinds of incredibly illegal weapons immediately. Right?
where?
It's not
Where?
really an issue of like control; it's an issue of supply. I mean, like you could look at any sort of like prohibited substance and draw the same conclusions, right? You have to look at where the supply is, where the demand is, and right now, because we fetishize these weapons to an insane degree, because they are incredibly easy to obtain, regardless of what the law says,
But
even
they
though the
were
law is
incredibly
freaking left.
they were incredibly easy to obtain 30, 40 years ago. In
They
fact, they were
were.
easier to obtain.
Like in the 80s, like you had to buy them from somebody you knew at a gun store. Like that guy knew whether or not you went home every night and drank yourself to death. That guy knew whether or not you had spent 20 years in the asylum and just got out, right? Like
Well,
in
I'm
the
pretty
80s,
sure.
it's done on a much more personal level. You couldn't buy assault rifles mail order back then, and you definitely couldn't buy them anonymously online.
Yeah, there were magazines where you could buy rifles on out of magazines, and I'm pretty sure Walmart and Kmart and all the other big box retailers were selling guns back then too. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you
They
look at
still
like
do.
if
They
you look at
still
like the
sell
Sears
guns.
wish list, if you look at like the old Sears wish list catalogs from the 80s and the 70s, they would have like whole like 2-3 pages of nothing but guns. I mean, and as far as like people saying, well, assault weapons, well, that's a made up political term anyway. But if you want to look at like say the AR-15, right? That's been on the civilian market since 1963. So that's not exactly a new rifle that's available
Yeah,
either.
but they
That's
always
been around.
you have to modify them to make them into the fully automatic weapon of war that people like covet, right? And those plans were way more difficult to like the knowledge for that was way more difficult to obtain. The culture around that wasn't as big back then either, right? Like you had shit like Rambo and whatnot fetishizing weapons, but you didn't have these gigantic communities of people coming together and just like planning this stuff out and bragging to each other about their ridiculous like size of guns. It was a relatively small community back then. It wasn't publicly common freaking knowledge where you needed to chisel the civilian AR-15 to make it into a fully automatic weapon, right?
Well, it takes a level of if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, that takes a level of machining knowledge that most people don't have.
But they can
Now,
easily obtain with a quick Google search.
now you can buy what's called a bump stock for an AR-15. It doesn't really turn it into a fully automatic. What it does is it makes it where it
Yeah,
makes it
the recoil
basically where you
costs
can
you
pull the
to
trigger
restrict.
faster.
Yeah, I know and
But
Although
like those modifications weren't as common either, right?
I
Like
do have
you didn't
something to
have
say.
But you know
like
the people that are doing that kind of stuff that you're talking about with the bump stocks and the modifications and going out and shooting the guns, they're not the ones going out and shooting up schools. They're not the ones that are going out and shooting up malls.
no, but the culture that they're creating influences the people that do.
I'm pretty sure there have been crazy people long before that culture.
Yeah, and they shot people too. They just weren't as effective at it, and they weren't as common.
I don't know. There was that one guy in Texas. I think it was 1965. He climbed up onto a clock tower and killed 14 people with a
Okay, so
bolt-action
you've done
rifle.
something really convenient for me now, because your previous argument was that these guns were ridiculously easy to obtain, and we didn't have like the mass spread shootings that we used to have. But
Well,
I mean,
I
your
didn't say
argument
we
says
didn't
that we
have them. I
didn't.
said they were extremely rare.
I mean, I feel like they were still marquee and well known. Just because we put more attention on them now doesn't necessarily mean they're any more or less widespread.
Well, and that's kind of another thing I think that drives a lot of these guys is the attention that it gets. I mean, nobody knew who the fuck Dylan Roof was before he shot up that church in Charleston, right? I mean, nobody knew who that wacko in fucking Colorado Springs was before he shot up that Planned Parenthood. I mean, there's a fame factor that goes with this as well. I think a lot of these guys are looking for fame. And in fact, Sargon of Akkad had did a video about this. Someone back in like Roman times, burning down a temple just for fame and notoriety. And it was either Roman or Greek, and the people at the time had banned anyone from speaking that person's name to deny him the fame that he was looking for.
So
I
what are
don't
your
know what
policies?
video.
I apologize if I missed it, but like, what are your prescriptions on policy? What do you think we should do?
Well, I think first off, we should address the mental health issue. I think a lot of people talk about that, but I think that's a small part of it. I think we should address the rise of these antidepressant drugs with these adverse side effects, because a lot of these shooters were on these prescription drugs. Address this culture of like fame and celebrity worship, because the fact of the matter is a lot of these guys are looking to be famous.
What
And
does
I
that
think,
policy look like, man? How do you rate that?
see, that's the tough question. That's the tough part, and I admit that. But I think ultimately we should look at things like, well, like the Colorado Springs guy, right? What baffles me is why any place that does abortions doesn't already have armed security, because of the level of crazy that brings out in people. And I mean, yeah, sure, we shouldn't have to have armed security in places like that, but we shouldn't need police and firefighters either. But we don't live in a perfect world. So, I mean, something like that, because like I said earlier, these shootings don't happen at gun ranges. These shootings don't happen at police stations. They don't happen at gun shows. They don't happen at NRA rallies. They happen where there are a bunch of unarmed people. Because these guys that are going to do these shootings, they are looking for a place where there are as many victims that can't fight back as they can possibly find. And a lot of times when these guys are confronted with someone that can fight back, they run away or they shoot themselves. And then, the world is free one less jackass, one less asshole.
I mean, I guess the one thing to take away, I guess, from your argument is it doesn't really matter where you sit on the debate. Is that like the mental health issue is at least nonpartisan, man. I don't think there's anyone sitting anywhere on any side of the aisle that says no, mental health isn't worth looking at. So, I mean, that's something that we can move forward on as a country at least, right? I obviously disagree with your rhetoric. I think the root causes are completely different. I feel like the guy with the gun narrative is a really, really bad one and a toxic one, and is at least partially responsible for this rise that we're having. But that's neither here nor there. That's also really subjective, and we don't really have the actual, like, studies to discuss
But
it.
why is it none of these mass shootings happen in places where people are armed?
They do, actually. The piece of news that I read most recently, the town in Maryland that makes gun ownership literally mandatory, just had its first mass shooting as well.
I didn't hear about that, and I think you're thinking of Georgia, not Maryland.
But irrelevant, right? The one town that everyone always points to, like, oh, look how low their crime statistics are. They have mandatory gun ownership. They just had like 6 people killed in a mass shooting.
Was it Kennesaw? Because I used to live there.
Yeah, I think that's in Kennesaw. I think that's in Georgia.
Yep.
Yeah, see, look, that was your league, Justin. Do you remember shit about that?
Do what?
I read that link from you. I'm pretty positive.
Yeah, it was Kennesaw. Yeah, it was Kennesaw, Georgia.
So, I mean, like, to further this, like, how many... I never read narratives of a good guy with a gun stopping a mass shooting, and it's not because crazy people are really good at planning the shit out. They aren't. Any random idiot can open carry in most states, right? You can't control for that factor. I very rarely ever read a story about somebody who happened to carry a pistol on their hip stopping a shooter before they did something dangerous.
Well, what gets
so
me...
I'm trying to get you reinforce that narrative.
Well, hold on, like, what gets me here on this... Sorry, I do want to say this.
Yeah.
Reagan was shot by a guy with a gun while he was surrounded with a bunch of guys with guns. So, and they were arguably trained to stop that sort of situation.
But he wasn't able to finish the job. The guys that were protecting him were able to stop him. I mean, sure, if someone comes out of nowhere and starts opening fire, yeah, there's going to be a few innocent people that get killed. But if someone else is in that crowd that can potentially pull out a weapon and stop that shooter, then that's fewer people dead. I mean, one of the things
What about
too.
crossfire? What about the confusion of the situation? What about the fact that there are many combat veterans who would actually argue against that point because of what they've seen in actual combat?
Well, I mean, as opposed to just sitting there and unarmed and unable to fight back and just letting the shooter kill you? I mean,
No, as opposed to policies that seek to prevent that situation from ever happening.
I mean, surely if other countries around the world are able to heavily limit the occurrence of stuff like this, there must be a way to do it here. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's an argument against the Second Amendment or an argument against gun ownership. I'm saying, like you said earlier, this is like a hydra, a multi-headed dragon. There's a lot of problems influencing.
Yeah. Well, actually, those other countries, they actually don't have a lower rate. If you take population differences into account, some of them actually have a higher mass shooting rate than we do. Switzerland, for one.
Case.
Oh, I did the math on this. If you take all the mass shootings from 1997 until I think it's 2014, then Switzerland's mass shooting rate is actually double that of the United States. And Germany and the UK were about the same.
We're talking about per year, though, compared to population, and then you have to use ratios, not just.
Well, I'm talking ratio. I'm talking rates. I'm talking rates over more than just 1 year. See, the thing is, I mean, the other thing too about those countries, like people point to Australia, right? Australia didn't really have a violent crime rate before the Port Arthur massacre. They didn't really have a violent crime problem. They didn't really have a mass shooter problem. They had one mass shooting. They passed a bunch of laws. They didn't have any more mass shootings. They claimed success. But there wasn't really a problem before that because one event doesn't really constitute a problem. One event is more of an anomaly, right? So to claim success for something that was solving a problem that wasn't really there just doesn't work. I mean, to me, I see that and I think that's not really success because you didn't fix anything because there was nothing to fix.
Yeah.
Now, as there was some other point and I forgot what it was now, but there was something about as far as like, you know, in a situation like that, I mean, what I was going to say, why you never hear about armed people conceal carry stopping mass shootings. Okay, you know, take a hypothetical scenario, right? You're in a theater and some asshole walks in and starts shooting the place up, right? Or some asshole whips in and pulls a gun. Okay, concealed carrier whips out his gun and puts two in his chest before he has a chance to shoot anyone. So technically, no mass shooting has happened.
Every single right-wing news outlet in the entire country would trumpet that story for the next 3 months, like just on infinite loop.
Well, and you know they do. They point that out. I mean, I have access to a list right now, and I might ought to let you know too. I'm not a right winger by any stretch of the imagination. All right, but you know I have access to a list right now with a bunch of people that stop crimes, you know, that had concealed carry permits, that stop mass shootings or stop robberies in progress. Or, you know, the woman that...
someone does stop a mass shooting because it's not a mass shooting until a mass of people have been shot.
Well, yeah, it's not a mass shooting until 4 people are dead.
Yeah. But, I mean, the thing is I tend to lean towards what both of you are saying, except I don't tend to buy the narrative that a good guy with a gun stops a bad guy with a gun.
I'm kind of the same way too.
I don't see why people have a problem with that narrative because honestly, if someone walks in and starts shooting the place up, what's the first thing that people are going to do? They're going to call the cops. What do the cops have?
Yeah.
They have guns.
Yeah, but they also have uniforms and, you know. they have badges. You can identify them really easily. But of course, to somebody who's just like dressed like you and looks like you, and then he's just sitting in the crowd, and some other people that have concealed weapons too might think, well, he might be a part of this, and then they'll start shooting, and then there'll be a bunch of bullets flying, and nobody understands what's going on.
But that's never happened. That's never happened. I mean, that has never happened, not once. Where someone walked in to shoot the place up.
A bystander didn't shoot innocent people? Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not talking about bystanders shooting innocent people. I'm talking about it's never happened where someone walks in to shoot up a public place. Someone else pulls a pistol to drop that asshole, and then a bunch of other people that have concealed carry pistols, in the confusion, think the guy that's stopping the asshole is the asshole. That's never happened.
That's fair. We might not have like a specific scenario of that exact situation happening, but we do have several scenarios in which good guys with guns shot innocent people trying to stop bad guys who weren't even committing crimes that were worthy of being shot, right? Like, that's a fairly common occurrence.
You have good guys with guns that have shitty aim that end up shooting the wrong person.
They're everywhere. Everyone is a lot shittier with a gun than they think they are. No one is fucking like a CIA trained undercover op like they think they are in their head.
Your average patrolman isn't that great with a gun either.
Yeah, I have a question. Cops end up shooting innocent people all the fucking time. It's terrible. It's probably something we should do something about.
What's the difference in my here's a question. What's the difference between someone with shitty aim shooting an innocent person and them dying, and someone who's aiming to shoot at an innocent person and kills them? In both scenarios, that person is dead.
What were you saying?
We as a society obviously look to intent first and foremost. We talk about intent with literally everything that we do. If we removed intent from the equation, a lot of things would be crimes that aren't, and a lot of things that are crimes would stop being crimes.
Yeah, no, I get that, but at the end of the day, I mean, if someone goes and tries to stop bad guy and ends up shooting innocent person, I understand there's a difference in intent and obviously a difference in the crime that person would be charged with, but for the person who got shot, it's the same outcome.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I agree with your point, right? Obviously, if like innocent bystanders dying is bad in every instance, and we should do what we can to stop it. I agree with the argument that good guy with a gun is just as dangerous as bad guy with a gun to the wrong people. But I mean, it's not a point of contention that will get you any traction, right? Because it's really difficult to prove those stories when they happen. B, it's not a widespread enough problem in order for us to like highlight it. It's definitely not as widespread. Like I'll concede that it's definitely not as widespread as just crazy people shooting a bunch of innocent people, right? Good guys accidentally shooting innocent people is a much, much smaller number than crazy people shooting innocent people. So yeah, it's difficult to do anything about it. I agree with where your heart's at, but like you're not going to be able to affect any good policy change about it, and you're just wasting capital talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be hard, trying to come up with some way to make everybody happy. I think no matter what happens, whether there is going to be some sort of policy or not, there's still going to be people with guns. And even if there isn't any guns around, people will still kill each other, even if they have to, with their bare hands.
Well, I mean, do you realize how like insanely easy it is to make info?
Yeah.
I mean,
but they would require that same kind of technical know-how that you talked about with people filing off on the AR-15.
Well, you can go on Google right now and
yeah, but
get
that's exactly what we said earlier. You could go on Google and find out about the AR-15 too.
But it doesn't take as much technical skill as it would to file a receiver. I mean, you're talking about mixing ingredients.
To file a receiver, all you need is a file and the know-how of where to file it. I mean, to make info, you actually need know-how on how to combine chemical components.
I'm pulling up a handbooklet right now on how to convert the legally available semi-automatic AK-47 that's like pretty fairly common into a fully automatic weapon with a simple file, right? Like, obviously, it can't be the specific model that's manufactured without the automatic in place, but a lot of manufacturers get away with simply just putting a bar in the way. And removing that bar is as simple as 1, 2, 3, and you got a fully automatic weapon. And it's not even considering, like, automatic weapons aren't actually illegal in a lot of states. They only just can't be shipped as one thing. You have to buy them in pieces. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Right?
Also,
Especially, like out here in Kansas, I can own a fully automatic AK-47 totally legally as long as I got it
Two
shipped in
things.
parts.
Two things I might point out about automatics. Number one, there was a law that was passed in 1986 banning the sale of new automatics to civilians.
Right,
Past
which is why you have to
1986.
buy the parts of it.
Okay,
Right? That's why you have to ship in pieces.
Number two, automatic fire for something like, say, if you were going to go kill a bunch of people, fully automatic would be a really shitty weapon to use for that, because in the military they use full auto on their rifles for what's called suppressing fire. So let's say you're trying to get somewhere, but there's some enemy over, across the way shooting at you. Well, you can switch to full auto, shoot in their general direction. That keeps them undercover so that your guys can move up and advance.
Right, it's a
Full auto
weapon
is
to be used against law enforcement. Right, that's the intention. Is you use it to protect yourself as you're moving away from
use it to cover people so they can move to a different position. It's not meant as like an offensive thing, because when you go full auto, your aim goes to shit. I fired guns, okay, and the quicker that you're firing them, or the quicker that you fire a gun, the harder it is to stay on target, because you get that muzzle climb as
Does
you
that
have the
matter in a
automatic.
large group of people? If the grouping is high?
More than you would think. More than you would think, because here's the thing. Here's the thing. The barrel's going to go up whenever you're on full auto. So, yeah, that's going to, because then you're going to have a lot of bullets going over their head.
Unless you anticipate for the recoil and hold it down.
I mean, like, there's a reason, like, the guys that get military training still can't do that very effectively. There's a reason why the number of bullet shots is typically way fucking higher than the number of people killed, and even with a fairly accurate semi-automatic weapon, it's still pretty goddamn difficult to hit a target that's moving and panicking at the same time that you're moving and panicking. Like his argument is correct, right? Fully automatic weapons not help you massacre, but it's a weapon of war that's really fucking useful for intimidating and keeping yourself at a distance from, like, police and law enforcement, right?
But, I mean, the whole weapon of war thing, I mean, that's kind of, I don't really get that argument either, because there was a time when Roman short swords and English crossbows were weapons of war. I mean, do we still call, whereas the AR-15 has never actually been used in any wars.
Somebody wanders into a mall with a gladius, I'm still going to run away.
Well, I think that also has to do with the fact that those were weapons of war because the armies that used them had a lot of them. So
we use that topic specifically to differentiate it from something that a civilian could sanely own, like, legally, right? Like, the argument is that these rifles are not something that a fucking civilian should have under any circumstances, literally any circumstances.
But
right?
what makes it a weapon of war is my question.
Like, high calibers that are useless at doing anything but penetrating, like, several layers of, like, thick ass concrete. Quick and easy firing, which is not useful for defending yourself against a single attacker. Like, anything with a long end in a semi-automatic configuration probably would fall under that. I don't really know. I'm not super, like, influenced on this topic because we have a fucking ban on gun violence research. So we have no idea what weapons are most commonly used in these instances.
Well, because let me tell you, when you say high caliber, right? The AR-15 uses a 5.56 millimeter round. Now, if you convert that to imperial, you get a .223 caliber, which is a little bigger than a 22. Okay. Now, to be fair,
there's a big fucking difference between the NATO cartridge and a .223.
Well, not really. But my point is this: your typical hunting round is a 30-06, which is a 30 caliber round. Now, and has a much larger case than the AR-15 223 round, right? You have a lot more gunpowder, you have a lot higher muzzle velocity. That 30-06 is actually more lethal than the AR-15 round because of the larger caliber and the larger powder charge behind
It
it.
isn't, because it blows through.
Well, you use it for deer hunting typically, is what it's used for, but it will go through
Right,
cinder
but it's not
blocks.
it's not as lethal against people though, because it just blows right through, right? It doesn't stay in the target and
No,
maim
I
and wound
don't.
like the war is designed to do.
Well, have you ever seen a 30-06 hit a watermelon? You get hit in anywhere in your body with that, and if it's anywhere even remotely close to a major organ, you're not surviving that. In fact, the 30-06 was the preferred round of the U.S. military up until the middle to end of the 1950s.
It's irrelevant. Like, none of this is going to lead to like actual policy or like any actual like informed policy decisions, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not a useful discussion to focus
Well,
on.
I'm just pointing out that, because I asked you to define it, and I'm just pointing out that hunting
I
rifles are
agree.
actually
The
more
definition is
lethal.
really fucking nebulous. We need research on the subject, but we have a moratorium on that. That's a good policy action that we could have. Let sociologists research how the fuck gun violence happens. Maybe we might find some patterns that we can stop.
That would be good. But we have actually had this research banned. At least by the CDC's not allowed to do research on.
You're right. Yeah, the
That's
government
not
wing's not
exactly.
allowed to do it, but beyond that, like, the federal government will not provide grants of any kind to any research that'll do it. So, like, to be fair, you can technically do like half-assed meta-analyses, but that's not good science, right? You can't. There are no federally funded studies on this, and the federal government is the biggest like funder of these sociological like research.
Well, that's not entirely true. One of the reasons why the CDC, what you're talking about, was the funding that was being given to the CDC to produce studies in support of gun control groups. No, nobody was against studies that were unbiased.
That's weird because the law on the books is specifically that the CDC can't research the topic.
Well, yeah, because they were biased in their research. I mean, it was
the
being
thing
used.
is if it's biased research, I'm sorry, but the way
If
science
it's
works.
Yeah, if it's biased research, it'll get sussed out by companions and peer review, right? If the CDC fucks up a study, they'll get called on.
Maybe.
No, not maybe, man. That's how science works. They will be called on. They will be heard.
If it's not useful information, it's not practically. It's not applicable information.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think I want to go ahead and move on to a different subject now. I think we got our
I agree.
our things in there. I just want to say that I think no matter what happens, people are still gonna have guns and weapons, just because that's just how we always were. I mean, especially down back in the old West when everybody had a weapon, pretty much. It's just part of being human now,
Well, it's that whole American attitude of fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
So I'm gonna
Rage Against the Machine.
I'm gonna pull this up and I wanna tell me what you guys think.
What we think.
Let's go on to this here. Let me just find.
Oh yeah, I got StarCraft 2. If anyone else plays StarCraft 2.
Can you see this?
Yeah. I can see it.
So this was in Philadelphia Daily News. This was their cover page, and this is what a bunch of people are talking about right now.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think about Donald Trump's policies and
I think he's
positions?
a fascist. Very overt fascist.
Yeah.
I've got some decent opinions, but I'm going to make the transition to my desktop, so I'm no longer on this shitty mobile platform anymore. Give me a minute.
All right, he'll be back on in a second.
Okay. Yeah, well, basically, he recently stated that he wanted to ban all of Muslims from entering the country. Um,
This
and
makes me think he's a Democratic plant. I really don't. I don't buy into conspiracy shit, but I'm just like,
Well, he's
dude.
doing pretty damn well for a plant.
Yeah, like
I mean,
he sounds like the more crazy his ideas are, and it just seems like it gives him more of a boost in the social.
well, yeah, he said
Yeah,
shit that
yeah,
would kill most people's campaigns.
yeah.
Hell,
And then
look at when he introduced himself.
and he
That
has
should have killed his campaign right there. I mean, you know.
and he has plenty of money to advertise
Oh yeah.
and do all that. Uh, Probably more than most other people campaigning.
I mean, there's
You
that
know
chick
what's
Besides
really
Hillary
Ryan
Clinton.
Singer.
You know what's really sad about the Donald though? Is as bad as he is, as horrible as he is, the alternatives aren't much better. I mean, right now we see the Democrats, okay, trying to subvert the Fifth and 14th Amendment with this whole no-fly list thing. A list that I might add that has been heavily criticized by the ACLU. Okay, and you know, then the Republicans, of course, are defending against this, but they're not defending against it, I don't think necessarily because they care about civil liberties. You know, obviously it's because of their side on the gun debate, which, you know, we're not going to go back into. But the point is what they're doing, trying to subvert those freedoms, it's not really much better than what Trump is proposing. It's kind of like I look at this election and I think, you know what, we're fucked if we do, and we're fucked if we don't.
I'm still a big proponent of Bernie Sanders. I'm just, you know, he's a good guy.
I like Jim Webb myself, but he's running as an independent.
That's crazy.
But
Like,
I
to
mean,
me-
that's kind of the thing. No,
To me,
go ahead.
Trump is. I'm sorry, but it's almost as if he just like took a basic European history class and he was like, okay, I'm gonna do everything Hitler did except for you know, trying to invade Russia in the winter.
Yeah, he might
He's
do
gonna
that.
be
I don't
Canada
know.
instead. No, he's going to invade Canada in the winter.
Something heartening to remember is that early polls like this are totally, completely, and absolutely useless in determining who's actually going to be relevant come election time. Like every single election cycle, we have crazy-ass candidates that have no chance at all of ever making it to the White House. Just talking left and right, blowing up news feeds everywhere because they're fun. They're a fun, dumb spectacle. And we're also finding now that the way we used to do polls just aren't effective anymore. Like in the past, we used to use landlines to do our polling, and that's the method that a lot of people still use to this day. That ends up skewing the demographics pretty heavily because the vast majority of people don't even have landlines anymore. Like, so the news media is focusing really hard on Trump and polls saying that Trump's ahead for a Republican candidate. Won't mean jack shit come primary time. He's gonna fall out, or he'll say something so absolutely ridiculous that
And
what can he say that's more ridiculous than what he's already said?
I have no idea.
I mean, I know I say that, and then tomorrow he's gonna surpass the bar. But I mean, honestly, and here's the thing too. Bill Maher was talking about this and that about Donald Trump and saying that a lot of people were saying the same things about Reagan when he was running. They didn't think he could win. They didn't think he had a chance. They didn't think that he would get anywhere.
Yeah,
and then lo and behold,
pretty boy actor, not because he was a hyper-fascist racist.
Well, Reagan wasn't as obvious about it. I will grant you that.
Reagan was pretty fucking bad.
Yeah. Although one thing that I will give him credit for trying to do was the Strategic Defense Initiative. I think that was a good idea, and I think we should bring that back. But other than that, no.
Yeah.
I'm I don't think that the people who are vocal about Bernie Sanders are going to shut up anytime soon. But it is quite a ways away from the general or the primary, and a long ways away from the general.
Well, yeah, we still got almost a year.
Yeah.
A
Maybe that's
little
the
less
problem with
than a
most
year.
people in this country is they're like, oh, we still got almost a year. Maybe we need to be a bit more vocal. I plan on being. And I say this and I immediately go to an example that's not a real example, but I bought a T-shirt that says "Keep calm and burn one," and it has Bernie Sanders like in black and white form, blowing like a puff of smoke out of his mouth. It was great. It made me happy.
God damn it, Justin. Alright, I'm switching over to the desktop.
Alright, man. I mean, I think Donald Trump's just like a really funny character. He's like he's almost like funny in a way as like a super villain. And he's just missing a costume. That's all. He's halfway there with that toupee. So.
Are we sure it's a toupee? Like, I recall him saying it's his own hair.
It might be his hair.
That hair reminds me of that clip on Adult Swim where where William Shatner's hair comes to life at night. And it's fighting crime and all kinds of other crazy stuff.
What if, and hear me out on this because I'm not a conspiracy nut, but I like to make up weird conspiracies that they might believe. What if Trump's hair is actually like part of like the Illuminati and it just jumps on his head and it's forced him into candidacy?
That's a Futurama skit.
It's a hair conspiracy.
That's what he uses to control people with.
Oh.
That and his money.
He likes to control people with distraction. I remember one of his first speeches, wherever people asked him about his policy and stuff, and he went on this whole diatribe about making America great again, and then he points out this guy's hat and says, "That's a great hat." And I'm just like, that's the summation of his entire candidacy from that point on.
Pretty much.
Donald Trump is what would happen if a YouTube comment section came to life and ran for president.
See, I think we'd be worse off, in all honesty, with someone like Ben Carson than with Donald Trump. Just because I don't think Donald Trump would actually be able to get anything done.
Well, and I've kind of said that too. I don't think Trump would be able to get anything done. Plus, Carson thinks the pyramids are big grain bins, so
Here's the difference, though. Like, I think that a lot of people underestimate the importance of the president as foreign policy head. Donald Trump would have literally unilateral control there, right? And even if he wouldn't be able to like affect anything diplomacy-wise, he would set negotiations back with literally every single country on the planet by centuries, right? We would go back to the dark-ass old days instantaneously. We would lose respect with every single like head of state across the entire globe. Ben Carson says dumb stuff, but he's at least a mildly intelligent and mild-mannered person, right? I feel like he's one of the best neurosurgeons in the world, man. He's actually just stupid fucking capable in his chosen field. I agree. He should stay the hell out of politics.
He tried to sell sugar pills as cancer treatment.
I know. He needs money.
Carson?
Ben Carson. He tried to sell this really douchey homeopathy placebo.
How can he be respectable in any way in medicine if he's going to attempt such a thing?
Because he needs money. Who doesn't need money? Like, what are the dumb shit that you've done in your life for money, man? I used to like sling burgers at Burger King. I'm not proud of that fact, but I needed the money at the time.
Slinging burgers is fun.
But I mean, like, it's irrelevant because neither of those two candidates will matter come time. I promise you, it's going to be Cruz, like for sure, and he's kind of an asshole, but we could definitely be worse off. And I don't know who else would be up against Cruz. Rubio, probably. Cruz and Rubio, for sure, when it comes down to it.
I was thinking more likely Rubio or Bush, but Rubio to me didn't seem quite as radical.
Yeah, that's the key point, right? Is that Cruz is kind of on the slightly more far right side of Rubio.
Yeah.
So he does a good job of picking up anyone that would have supported Trump once we tar and feather him and throw him out of the RNC. So, like Rubio would be the counterbalance to Cruz there. So you would have your choice of slightly to the fucking middle, extreme right or extreme right there.
Yeah.
Who do we think is going to be on the good old pony show?
The Democrats?
Yeah.
Pony show? Because of donkeys?
No,
Is that what?
But me personally, even though Bernie's leading in all the polls, I have this strong suspicion that they're going to fuck him, and they're going to nominate Hillary Clinton.
For the exact same way that they tried to pull the same shit on Obama, though, right? The DNC has such tiny control on who actually makes it to the candidacy that it's mind-blowing. It's actually mind-blowing to compare the DNC and the RNC because they take completely different approaches to, like, their candidates. Holy shit. Someone's breaking into your house, man.
Does it sound like it?
Yeah, they take completely different approaches to like how they control their candidacy. The DNC is way more laissez-faire about it. The RNC is way, way, way more controlling because they give a lot more active support to their candidacies than the DNC does. I feel like even if Bernie Sanders lost support of like the higher ups nationally, which wouldn't happen, but even if he did, like he'd get elected in the exact same method that Obama did, which is through huge grassroots outpouring that the DNC would eventually latch on to because it would be a sign that, yet again, the Democratic Party is the party of the young, college-aged voter.
See, I personally think we should shift away from the DNC altogether and create a progressive national party.
I agree, but not right now. Right now is a really terrible idea because asshats like Trump are on the docket. That's a fantastic idea at the state level. It's a terrible idea at the national level, right now, right? Yeah, elect people running on a progressive ticket as senators, elect people running on a progressive ticket as governors, do that kind of thing, start it from the bottom, start a new party that way. Fantastic idea, but do not steal votes from the Democratic Party until that shit functions on its own, right? Like I would be in all support if like the Republicans split between the current Republican Party and the Libertarian Party, and if the Democrats split between their current party and a progressive or a socialist party, right? That would be fantastic. That's great for politics. That's great for every single country that has a multi-party system. It's fantastic because you get counterbalance. You get debate in Congress. No longer are there only just like the one aisle. You have to negotiate with a bunch of different people. So a lot of compromise happens there, right? There aren't these massive power blocks that just get what they want done because it swung slightly red this year or slightly blue this year, right? It's a fantastic idea, but terrible idea for the national election right now. We're super vulnerable.
Yeah.
No, that's got to happen at some point, man.
Yeah. And it'll get more and more likely as time goes on. Like people get better at organizing every year. People get better at sharing information every year. We become more and more interconnected.
I think it would be great if we just realized as a country that we could vote third party. I mean, you know, I'm looking at like this Shem Webb guy. I really like this guy.
But
and
no chance in hell for him, right?
No chance in hell for him because he got snubbed by the Democratic Party in favor of Clinton and Sanders. But, I mean, he's got a pretty good foreign policy. He's got a pretty good domestic policy. You know, he supports all the things that I like.
Wait. Webb, he was in the first debate, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was in the first
He was the wallflower.
Well,
the guy in the back of the room that nobody let talk. He was like the kid in the corner that no one liked because he smelled or something. Oh man, I don't know jack about him, man. I don't mean to like talk shit on him.
He basically got snubbed down because he had a higher rating from the NRA than all the other candidates.
Yeah, I remember that was such a
to get an A
fun
rating
debate.
He's the only
Like, who's
Democrat to get
hated-
an A rating from the NRA.
Yeah. Who's hated more by the NRA? That's fantastic. What a fun pissing contest. But yeah, it becomes more likely every year. Like you have to take really critical steps, though. I mean, like the Electoral College has to be abolished first and foremost in order for a third-party candidate to ever become viable. Because as long as our votes are controlled by gatekeepers, then like, it's impossible for a third-party candidate to ever break out, right? Like, you abolish the Electoral College, you establish like a national election day that is a federal holiday that people can actually vote on. You make voting like an opt-out system instead of an opt-in, and you like hand out ballots to freaking everyone. Yeah, then a third-party candidate might become more viable. Politics will become more engaged and more capable. But until then,
Maybe, but here's the thing people don't realize about the Electoral College. That only affects the presidency. As far as members of the House, as far as members of the Senate, that's all done by popular vote.
yeah, which is why we frequently see independent senators elected all the time. And even though they don't run on like a specific party platform, I mean they usually do, but like they're not recognized by that party platform once they hit the national stage. They're still happening, right? Like you have a fairly sizable chunk of independents in Congress. They tend to be pseudo-independents, like when you just have two Republicans in a race and you can't both run as the Republican ticket, so one of them goes independent, which is frustrating. But I mean, we still we have the potential for somebody to do something without the acceptance of whatever the national committee is, which is fantastic. We should see more of it as time moves on.
Yeah.
Shizzle my nizzle.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's hard for me to say anything because I don't really know a lot about politics. So I just know
you should get into politics.
I should, but I mean, I just really don't care right now because I got a lot going on in my life, and I'm just trying to work and make money and try to survive.
Until March before you have to care about it, man.
Yeah.
The only people talking about it right now are just way too into it.
Yeah, because I don't even know them personally, so why should I vote for them?
I know, but my wife is always I don't care, whatever. It's okay. I know you're into that, but I'm not always into that. Okay.
Well, I'm still gonna vote. I'm still gonna vote for whoever I think is probably gonna be the best one. But either way, I mean, I just don't care. And after I voted, I just don't care. I'm gonna try to survive every single day.
I get that, but who you vote for and how well you research the people you vote for and to see what's going on. It becomes imperative that you do so and that you actually care about it, because this stuff affects you whether you want it to or not, and whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it'll have an effect on you. If you could push this country towards a state where you don't have to necessarily kill yourself to make a decent living, or to get an education, which you know a lot about too because of going to school, and these student loans are horrible things.
Well, I'd like to see us eventually have a universal basic income.
That would be nice.
There are quite a few European countries that are looking at doing that, and the reason
there are quite a few European countries that have that.
I don't think they have it quite yet, but
Norway has a UBI. Okay. Sweden does as well, which is just mind blowing to me. Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to keep cutting you off. It's kind of rude. I apologize.
But the reason why I think we should do that too is because, I mean, current economic situation aside for a minute, we're looking at in the next 20 to 30 years the possible reality that there aren't going to be enough jobs to keep everyone employed because machines and robots are going to be doing them all. Yeah. I mean, we're already working on self-driving cars. McDonald's is testing out the idea of automated kiosks for ordering and checkout, and then they do have robots for cooking the burgers and the fries. I mean, that's just one example, but we have the technology to do a lot of this stuff already, but it's in its infancy. So at the moment, it is cost prohibitive for companies to use this to replace workers. But once it's no longer cost prohibitive, I mean, you have one machine that can do the work of 20 people. Okay, sure, you need someone to do maintenance and repair the machine, Okay, so you hire one of those 20 people that got replaced, you still have 19 people that are out of work.
Mhm.
And there's no jobs for them because robots and machines are doing it all. So we need to look at that. Definitely.
Yeah, that does sound really good.
Well, it'd be kind of
And
nice to not
it'd
have to do
also
shit work
be
anymore.
it'd also be great if everybody could just, not worry about money and just get whatever they want and need.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah. And then like like you said, machines would be making all the product and doing all the work. So
Well, they'll probably be building the roads and mining the ore too.
yeah.
In fact, they're already working on them to mine the ore. They already have machines that do that because mining is like extremely dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And eventually we'll get to go among the stars and have like a federation in Star Trek because I love Star Trek and I want it to be real.
And we can have
you
like
imagine us.
Gundams and stuff, like giant robots.
I don't know. Gundam control debate.
And
Well, interestingly enough, just a little interesting fact, because Michigan, just a little bit on the gun laws. Michigan gun laws are kind of weird. They actually passed a law banning the ownership of particle weapons, like plasma rifles, laser rifles, that kind of thing.
They're a thing, man.
Just in case.
But they've already banned it. Well, just in case like someone invents one.
Yeah.
Now I don't know how well that would stand up once they come about, but whatever. Like I don't understand why they don't need to pass that
Homemade
law.
weapons are still legal nationwide. And not to get back on that topic again, but
no,
I'm not trying to. I was just pointing.
For the most part,
we were discussing like robots replacing workers and how eventually, But then I said eventually it would come down to Gundam control debate because I was talking about having Star Federation and stuff, and then Chris was like Gundams, and I was like, what about the Gundam control debate?
Now, I'm not familiar with Gundam. Is that like battle robots
Gundam
or
Wing.
something?
It's an anime.
Oh, okay.
Serious time with the terrible facial hair. Discuss the hot button topic of sci-fi weapon control. Speaking of sci-fi weapon control, did you guys ever see any of that research about mass accelerator weapons?
What?
No.
Is it about railguns?
No. Well, I mean, a railgun would be like a mass accelerator, but I'm talking about like weapons of mass destruction. Like the current DARPA research to replace the ICBMs that we have right now is going to some dark places, and it's really fascinating. One of the payloads that they were focusing on recently was antimatter, because of its just ridiculous destructive potential, and the fact that it doesn't have any.
Sounds like bad fucking news.
Right? World-destroying stuff, right? We could literally build a bomb that could take us out, but...
Here's one thing I can't agree with is like nuclear weapons. Okay, yeah, nobody should have nuclear weapons. Governments shouldn't have nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons should have never, or nuclear. Well, once we drop those bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the rest. If we were a smart species, we would have looked at that and been like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't build more of these bombs. But we're humans. We looked at that and we thought, how can we make them bigger?
So, the vast majority of world leaders would agree with you, but the complication is that it's just politically untenable, right? Because the moment one guy decides to keep their bomb, or one guy decides to build a new bomb, fucking all hands are on deck, right? We are immediately left defenseless, and it causes ridiculous amounts of problem. Now, universal de-armament is a noble goal. It's something that we should strive towards, but it's not possible as long as we consider ourselves separate states.
Well, that's why I thought the idea of a strategic defense initiative was a good idea. Was because it would keep nuclear weapons from being able to be launched. I think we should have a global strategic defense initiative for that very reason.
Chihuahua.
I mean, especially when you look at like some of these states that are chomping at the bit to get a nuclear weapon, like Iran and North Korea, right? Okay, because let's not kid ourselves, Iran still wants a nuke. All right, they might have signed some deal, but we know they still want the bomb. If we had global SDI, we want the bomb. But if we had a global SDI in place, as soon as they launch that nuke, we can shoot it out of the sky. And it doesn't do anything.
I think it's funny though that is funny, a funny conversation between the world and Iran. We want a bomb. Why do you want the bomb? Never you mind why we want the bomb.
We want to light up Israel like the eyes of Allah.
This podcast just got racist as fuck, y'all.
This podcast is about Chihuahua. It's about racism. That's all it's about, really. The underlying.
Yeah. See, notice how Chris has a Chihuahua and he's Mexican.
I know a lot of young white girls with Chihuahuas, man. That doesn't mean anything.
I want to show you guys something real quick. It's not this though. I think it's something else.
Putin.
Yeah, this here.
See, with Putin,
I don't know. Have you guys seen this video yet?
No. Claim.
Justin keeps making noise and it pops my camera over. Wait, is that just I fucking love science?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go watch it.
Is it just music in the background of it?
Yeah, it's just music. It froze on me though.
Oh.
How do you get that stuff to pop up on the screen like that?
Screen share.
No, I'm using a Minicam.
Oh, Minicam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just.
That's why it's pixelated like that.
Yeah. You can just use screen share, bro.
Okay, I'll try that. Oh. Okay.
Google has the answer.
Google has all the answers nowadays.
I could see us even within 250 years in the future, we'll have the Googleites and the Yahooites and the Bingites.
People that still use Yahoo.
Yeah, it's not working for me.
Is screen share working for me? Because it's a fucking nightmare right now.
There we go. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's clean.
Yeah.
Was this the Kepler star, the weird anomaly they saw there?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is talking about parallel universe possibilities.
Oh, okay.
An entire race of aliens could exist in a parallel universe, or the lens could have been dirty. We don't fucking know, man.
So basically, something's happening in space that we noticed, and we're just not sure what it.
No,
could
we were
be.
looking in the background radiation of space. That's how we determined the age of the universe, and we noticed some cold spots.
Yeah.
And it's either an issue with the lens or it's the evidence of parallel universes. It's either or at this point.
Yeah. So what do you think a parallel universe is like from our universe?
I don't think it would even... it's not even, that's not like a nonsensical statement at that point.
Yeah, I feel like the ones that we could actually discover would just be so far apart from like everything that we understand. Like laws would function differently there, right? Like everything about it would be completely different. It'd be a fascinating alien experience.
Yeah. But we would have no way to experience and or measure it.
Black Mesa could be real.
In that universe, light may not have died.
Or maybe it doesn't exist.
I don't. At that point, it's a bunch of what if.
Yeah, like it's wild ass speculation.
Yeah.
Will we ever reach a point in our understanding of things where we will be like, we've discovered just enough?
I give up. Oh, I'm gonna go eat Cheetos and take a shower or something.
Well, when robots are doing all of our labor for us, and we have an infinite amount of time to sit around and think about the universe, maybe we'll.
We'll just make robots to do that for us too.
So, dude, hey, yeah, that was a fascinating ass topic, though. I fucking love science. Ran a point on that as well that leads to a giant nested web of other articles. But current research seems to suggest that the idea that like we would ever make computers smarter than us would get outpaced very quickly by our ability to make ourselves smarter, right?
Yeah.
Like at the same time that we were like developing artificial intelligence and advanced robotics and all these other things, we were also developing advanced gene therapies. And with the advent of advanced robotics and advanced gene therapies, it just creates this feedback loop where we're constantly making each other smarter in an ever-increasing race to the freaking bottom or the top, depending on your perspective, right?
Borg. We are the Borg.
Yeah, eventually, like we just grow into giant hive minds at some point in the future, where we're all one giant singularity of consciousness, or other crazy Isaac Asimov bullshit, if you want. But I thought that stuff was fascinating, and that's like literally all it takes is like the first advanced computing device to kickstart that process.
See, like, here's my thing. What if among that search throughout the intellect and that search for the most efficient possible way, we discover that a hive mind mentality or a singular consciousness is not actually the most efficient route?
That would be neat for future us to figure out.
That's to suggest, though, that humans would go for something like a hive mind in the first place. I mean, we can't even agree on something as simple as what to have for lunch sometimes.
I mean, it would be a really slow-ass transition, right? That society looks totally different than ours. Though it would be neat.
There are, they are experimenting with like cybernetic implants for things.
Wetware is awesome
already, but I just can't see people giving up their individuality.
I think individuality is an illusion already, so.
Not necessarily.
You know, it's kind of Justin to give the classic stoner opinion. What is self, man?
Well, actually, I've broken it down to what I call slices of perception. From one moment to the next, you're likely to change. Something about you is going to change in the way that you behave from that moment onward. Something, maybe very small, but over the accruement of a lifetime, that's how a person develops. So if these influences come from the same sort of stimuli, like as they do with most people, then most people are not necessarily all individual. We have elements of individuality among a sea of inherited and similar traits. And I think it creates an illusion that we all think we're all individuals who are uniquely, astounded with ourselves,
In having this thought, you perpetuate the illusion by securing yourself as an individual with unique thoughts?
No. I think other people have had these thoughts too.
Yeah, Heidegger, actually. Talked a lot about the transience of identity like that. I don't remember what his arguments was because we only ever read ontology from him, but that was part of his discussion. His big thing was that eventually we would hit post-scarcity as well, and we would have the ability to do nothing but sit around and think about ourselves all day, and that's how we would become Superman. So, embrace robots, I guess, so we can sit around and talk about individuality and actually come to real answers for these questions.
and do a lot of drugs.
How many drugs?
I'm wondering.
So, like, I've done a bunch of acid recently. And it's not been all that fun. It's just been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't have a response for you, man. I've never done acid. I wish I could share in your experience, but I don't.
Well, I've got a pretty steady supply. I could probably put you some in a birthday card.
Please do not ship acid through the federal mail, man.
It's funny because it happens like all the time.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
Actually, the USPS is the best way to go about it.
If I get a card and I crack it open, like in my couch, and a little baggie falls out of it, I'm not.
Well, it's usually not. It's usually added onto the card, and you just lick the card.
Or you cut the card out and you put it in your.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, that's really how it works.
That is the craziest stoner bullshit I've ever seen. Some dude gets a birthday card, and on the inside it's like, "Yo, lick me," and he's just like, "Oh."
Can you all still hear me?
They have little squares drawn on the card, and you cut that out because you gotta let it sit under your tongue for quite a while for it to take effect.
Can you all still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I switched over to my phone so I could go out and have a cigarette.
That's all right.
I am out of cigarettes, but somehow I have a joint here.
Surprise.
It's odd though.
It's a when I say joint, it's a tobacco cigarette that I self-rolled.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm getting ready to do that exact same thing, the self-rolling actual tobacco, not whatever the hell you're calling tobacco for the sake of this video.
It's tobacco.
It's a wacky tobacco.
It's not all that wacky. Actually, it's really wacky. It's really
Typically not green, man.
It's like 36% wacky.
Let's see what else I got here. Paris.
Hey, look.
What about this here?
Well, yeah, he did the whole special with Bill Nye recently, and I love that special. Good.
So climate change, what do you think about climate change? I think it's stupid that people don't understand that it's really going on.
Well, not only that, I think it's stupid that people don't understand that it's going on. I also think it's stupid what people think is going on. Even the people on my side of the debate don't really always understand it. So I recommend watching a series of videos by Potholder54 on YouTube.
That's a legit-ass sounding name.
Yeah. No, I know it's not. It doesn't sound legit, but the dude is very, very well respected. He took place on the Global Climate Change Summit. He's a actually respected person, a climatologist. He's knows his shit and breaks it.
Why didn't you lead with that? Like, why didn't you lead with the dude's name and that he's a freaking climatologist? Why did you go by his YouTube screen name?
Because YouTube screen name is easier to find.
Well, you have to understand, too, a lot of information on that is well funded. I mean, oil companies have millions upon millions of dollars to try and change people's mind on that, even though it's something that's really going on.
See, what I get a lot from people is that they believe that the climate changes, but they don't think we can possibly.
It's kind of silly when you look at the data because it's like all of the change, or the vast majority of the change, has happened in the last 150 years.
Another thing I like about Another good thing I like about the potholder guy is he puts all of his sources in the description. And all of the sources are legitimate sources that don't link to other pages that link to other pages. They're like straight up peer-reviewed journals, and it's like, finally, someone with the balls to do it the right way on the internet.
Thunderfoot's done a lot of good work on that as well.
Well, yeah. Although I will say Thunderfoot's not quite as near in depth.
Well, Thunderfoot gets a lot of bad press for other reasons too, which isn't deserved, in my opinion, but it is what it is.
But you were talking about the whole his position with PZ Myers and the Free Thought blogs and all that that went down.
And the Sarkeesian and all that stuff. Yeah.
No, I don't think he deserves the rep that he gets for it, but that doesn't mean I go on to think that he completely understands talking about feminism and stuff like that, all of that. I mean, I kind of fall onto the opinion of, is it feedback looping?
Oh yeah, hold on.
I fall into the position of being someone who does consider themselves a feminist, but under the umbrella of humanism. So it's odd for me to get in those discussions because I find elements that I agree with most people on, even though I do think that the MRAs and the MGTOWs are a bunch of idiots.
The whole thing is, though, is if you look at it, right, it's more complicated than either side is making it out to be. Now, for the most part, we do actually have equality already in the West. Obviously, when you speak of places like Saudi Arabia and Iran, it's a different story. But just speaking in the West, I mean, to say that women are oppressed when they can go on to YouTube, they can go on to any social media site and say what they have to say. I mean,
the argument isn't necessarily about how oppressed someone is. It's about whether or not we're still striving towards a more equal society. Because equality is aloof. It's not necessarily something you can achieve in perfect, in a perfect state. I don't think that there's ever going to be a time when everybody is represented how they should be.
Well, nothing's
but we can
perfect
move towards that.
But if you want to talk about inequality, I think class inequality is a much more important subject, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one thing with like a lot of these feminists that I see is it's always like these upper and upper class, wealthy white women or wealthy white people in general who are trying to make these points, and it's like, okay, you have millions of dollars, you have access to the best equipment, the best production values. I mean, if you look at my channel, right, I don't have high production values because I have shit equipment because I'm broke.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, but these same people will say that I'm more privileged because I'm a straight white male. But it's like, okay, you have the money, you have the equipment, you have the production values.
There's privilege in class, but I do need to make this point right here, though. Privilege is not, whenever you're talking about race specifically, or you're talking about gender or gender identity, or any of the other myriads of categories in which people can be described, you're talking about, from the perspective historically of a white male, you necessarily enjoy not necessarily benefits that other people don't, but a position in which you don't have to deal with the detriments that other people do have to deal with. Maybe not in every respect. I mean, I grew up as a poor white person too. I understand that poor white people can be discriminated against as well, but it doesn't happen as often by ratio as it does to people of color, or and maybe not all in the topic of sexism. I mean, and what we could consider about gender equality. I don't necessarily think that the Tumblr feminists are like what should be looked at.
Insane. They're insane.
Yeah.
That no argument there. But I mean, like I was reading an article the other day that was basically saying that MRAs and feminists were pretty much, especially the more radical of the two, were pretty much guilty of the same thing. Now, and I've kind of thought that for a while. My whole thing is, why should we fall into this trap of saying you have it better than me, you have it better than me, when the simple fact of the matter is the people that are really fucking your common person over are the wealthy, the people that control the votes, the people that control the senators. I mean,
I will ask you this though, but is it not fair to say that perhaps some of the aspects of sexism and racism create a feedback loop that feeds the classist rhetoric?
If I thought that, well, like as far as the sexism is, if I thought that it was like a major issue, if I thought that there really was like real sexism issues, then yeah, maybe. But the fact of the matter is it feels more to me like it's a distraction from who's really like running the show, who's really doing the oppressing.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest,
who does the oppressing? I don't like to think of it as a conscious effort. I mean,
well, it's not necessarily a conscious effort. I mean, basically, the wealthy are in control. They have the money, they have the power, and they want to keep it because all those that have power, the one thing that they fear the most is losing that power.
So why the fuck do you support Jim Webb over Sanders?
Because I don't know. I like Sanders. I could go for him, but there are things about him that I don't know. I don't feel like he's entirely genuine. And then I don't like the fact that, and I'll be honest, I don't like the fact that he jumped on the gun control bandwagon when the problem
He continues to sit on the outside of it. It's actually like one of the biggest sore spots for his platform. There's shit tons of progressives hate his views on gun control because they're pretty libertarian.
Well, yeah, he did support some pro-gun stuff, but I mean, here I'm talking about what he's been saying recently. And it feels to me like he is either done a complete, or he's either like done a policy shift, or he's just giving lip service to the, more radical of the progressive movement, or what I would call the neo-progressive movement, which, I don't know about these people. I mean, they seem to me like
honestly, I've done my fair bit of research on Bernie, and I think that the only position he's really shifted over the past 30 years has been his gun his gun position. I mean, he's ran on the same political rhetoric since he ran for mayor of Burlington.
Don't get me wrong, I'd take Bernie over Hillary or
by all means,
Trump any day. I would take him over those two any day, but I mean, with Webb, he isn't wanting to focus. From what I understand, he's more concerned with the threat of other superpowers and not these terrorist organizations. Because honestly, like one of the reasons why ISIS is so big is because, well, they indirectly got funded by the CIA and the Saudis, right?
Indirectly, quotations.
Well, I mean, meaning that, back at the beginning of this whole Syrian conflict last year, you had this Free Syrian Army begging for money, begging for weapons. There was this whole debate about whether we should do it. We ended up giving them the money and weapons, and look whose hands it ended up in. It ended up in the hands of ISIS. Mm-hmm. And then they turned around, they went back into Iraq, and the Iraqi army that we had trained and funded and supplied, they basically just like threw down their guns and ran away. And, that's why you see them rolling around with U.S. equipment now.
Imagine because if we had never gotten involved with the Middle East to begin with.
Oh, I do every day, man. I do every day. You're preaching to the choir on that one. Honestly, my whole thinking on that, and when I was talking about SDI earlier, right? I think we should develop and put online a global SDI program, and we should pull all of our troops and all of our presence out of the Middle East. And because honestly, these conflicts going on in the Middle East have been going on a lot longer than the United States has even existed.
Well, the hell
And
it
to be
was
honest,
back during the, from what I understand, the early 70s. A lot of Middle Eastern countries had a totally different landscape as far as the social spectrum went, and the spectrum of education among the masses was a lot different. Women's views were not oppressed nearly as much, but only within certain countries in the Middle East. And it
well, yeah,
seems
but
like
then
that
you
narrative
saw
shifted.
then you saw the well, part of that is when you saw the Islamic revolution in Iran in '79.
Yeah.
Okay, that's when you kind of started seeing that. But the thing is, even before that, there was a period of time where some of those countries weren't as bad. I mean,
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia still was. But the fact of the matter is, you're talking about groups of people, even before that, they were still killing each other. They were still warring with each other, and they have been for a long time. We should do
Guys,
a glow.
I gotta get my wife's clothes real quick. She's a
All
little bit late. I'll be right back.
All right.
Bye, Justin. So, Chris, I understand that this is your podcast, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Hey, man, I'm Stefan. We've never been formally introduced. How's it going?
I'm alright, man. Just like I said earlier, I've been busy working and mostly working. I work 2 jobs. One's full time.
Oh, yeah.
So I haven't been able to work on this podcast as much as I would like to. So,
dude, I know that feeling. I know that feeling a lot. I invested money in some decent equipment, and things have not been moving as quickly as I'd like it to.
Dude, I have a pretty decent setup here. I just don't have time to do this as much as I want to. That's all.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, but I'm glad you guys decided to join us. It was hard for me to find another person to come and do this last minute here, because today is one of my days off, and maybe one of the only days I can do this for a little while.
Well, man, what's on your agenda? Like, where are we going to next? Like, I feel like me and Spike have been controlling the shit out of this conversation.
Yeah, I've got a few things here that I want to talk about, but it was mostly just what we've been talking about: gun control, Donald Trump, politics. There's this thing that's come up that says there's a hidden portrait found underneath the existing painting of the Mona Lisa, and that just seemed really interesting. I figure we could talk about it.
That's been out a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, they started that research forever ago.
Yeah, they started, but they're just now.
They're drawing conclusions about it.
Yeah.
I think the Last Supper was another one too that they were talking about that was like that.
It's some real Dan Brown level shit. What coded messages did Leonardo da Vinci leave us in the Mona Lisa? Does it point to Jesus' real kid? Oh.
I think he just painted over a painting that he didn't like, or he just started, and he's like, man, I don't have money, or I don't have time to make another canvas, so I'm just gonna paint over this one. I think that's what happened.
You see the reptile pope hiding behind the Mona Lisa. I don't know, it'll spawn a bunch of really fun, dumb fiction stories in the future, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
So what else happened in the news?
Let's see. There's some more pictures of Pluto. More gun stuff.
Lots of gun stuff.
Lots of gun
so
stuff.
much of it.
Everybody likes guns. Let's see what's trending.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that myself.
Here's something that's trending. It says Bill Gates, Donald Trump says he will ask Microsoft co-founder to help close up the internet.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that. I'm skeptical of that.
Because Bill Gates has the fucking keys, right? Like, he's a computer guy, right? He knows how this works.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what? As bad as Trump is, I'm really skeptical about those claims that he said that. And I haven't really been able to verify it outside of, like, extremely, like, left-wing, like, news media outlets. So I don't know. I mean, I could see him saying it. I ain't gonna lie, but at the same time, that seems like kind of a really insane thing to say. That seems like really wild.
I mean, we have way worse confirmed quotes from him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I guess, I mean, like, ultimately, that's fucking benign to other stuff he said, right? That's not insidious at all. Just, like, it represents a misunderstanding of how the internet works, which a ton of politicians have a misunderstanding of how the internet functions.
Well, and
it's
that's
not,
if he even said
it's
it.
widespread.
That's if he even said it. That's if he even said it. And, you know, I'm not willing to, you know, commit to saying that I think that he said that. I don't know. I haven't been able to verify it with other sources. So.
Well, it's on NBC. NBC News.
I don't know. I'm willing to assume that Donald Trump has a child level understanding of how the internet functions. I think that's the safe assumption to make.
I think he has trouble understanding anything that exists.
He knows PR. He's got that down really well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Donald Trump is just, I don't know, he's amazing to me. Like, how he even still has a campaign is just absolutely amazing after some of what he said. And my computer doesn't want to do more than one window open at a time running this, so I guess I'll have to see trending on the phone.
Well, shoot, man, are you open to outside topics? Or you want to focus on the news?
I'm open to anything right now.
I'm down for whatever.
Oh, hell. Like, let's just shoot the shit then. What do you do for leisure, guys?
Maybe
we'll find some common ground. Yeah, you got two jobs.
No, I've been playing Fallout on my free time.
It's a solid one. How far have you gotten?
Not that far. I'm guessing like a quarter or a little bit of quarter of the way through.
So can I give you a little secret?
What's up?
Take your sweet ass time getting through that game. The later levels of it are ridiculously broken right now. You need several patches for that to function in any sort of meaningful or interesting way. Like the moment you get to the finish, like when you finish the final quest, the entire final quest chain is broken in basically every single way that you could possibly approach it right now. So if it takes you a while, if you get a few patches in before you ever get to like the final stages of the game, you have a way more pleasant experience. You're not missing out on anything right now. I promise you.
Here I am.
Mostly just been building stuff like houses and putting guns on stuff. The typical stuff.
Engaging that OCD, man, it's a lot of fun.
I'm still stuck with my PS3, so even if I had the money to buy Fallout 4, I can't at this point.
I've been trying real hard to get my hands on a PS3 for like under $100 because I really want to go through and play through David Cage's games because he changed into a Sony exclusive when the PS3 dropped. He did Fahrenheit 451. I don't remember what else it was called. It was called Indigo Prophecy in the States. Yeah, Indigo Prophecy, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls. That was all his stuff. And you can only get Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls on the PS3. And it's sad. It's so incredibly depressing because I loved Indigo Prophecy and I haven't been able to play through any of his other games because they've been locked to PS3. I only recently made the switch to Sony by buying a PS4, but that's because I already had an Xbox One. I hadn't bought a console yet. So
I'm kind of a PlayStation fanboy. Always have been.
Man, I made the switch this console cycle. Like I'm 100% in Sony's corner. I used to be hardcore like Xbox or PC,
You know
nothing
what?
else.
Yeah.
But you know what? Neither one of those have God of War, and God of War is the shit.
I got God of War on a PS2 emulator on this machine right now. And I don't need a PS2 to play that.
Yeah, but I have like all of the God of War games on PS3 because they re-released the PS2 games on PS3.
Yeah, you can stream them to PS4 now. I don't even have to own the thing. I
Yeah.
just pick up a subscription service. It's fantastic. I'm gonna go smoke again. Hopefully, when I come back, Justin's here. So.
Yeah, he probably fell down and died somewhere.
Yeah, or he tripped his way into a bong and he forgot what time it was.
Probably forgot he was doing a podcast today.
It's a hell of a thing to forget.
Yeah. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and start closing this down in a minute. I guess whenever they get back, we'll go ahead and put in some final thoughts, and then we'll go to ending the podcast because it's been about almost 2 hours now.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. What is this your YouTube channel that's coming up?
Yeah, it's K2 Kurama. It's KEI2 Kurama.
Yeah, I should subscribe to you because maybe we could do this in the future because it sounds like we agree on a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty open to a lot of things. I'm not really against a lot of things, just because for the fact that I don't really care as much as other people do. But I still have my own opinions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, the thing is, like with a lot of this stuff, it's weird because a lot of people, like online when I'm talking, they'll either think that I'm a conservative because I don't support their position on gun control, or they'll think that, I'm a hardcore Democrat because I don't support, like laissez-faire capitalist type things, right? Especially with my more libertarian friends. But the fact of the matter is it's like, really, I mean, some of these issues kind of cross those lines. Like, just because you're a liberal doesn't mean you're going to support everything that the Democratic Party says.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea of that is, it's kind of something that attracts people that think for themselves.
Yeah.
I kind of think maybe we shouldn't even allow like means of production to be controlled by individuals because of the problems they think that it creates.
Like accidents or?
Well, like as far as economically speaking, I mean, I kind of take, when it comes to that, I kind of take a communist view on that. But, again, like I was talking with the rise of the machines and the robots doing most of the work, we're going to have to do the way we do anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of what side of the economic policy, or regardless of what your economic philosophy is, I mean, we're going to have to rethink that. And like a lot of the libertarian guys, they just kind of shut down when I bring that up. They really like, what do you mean? Like, there's always going to be jobs for people. No, excuse me. No, not really. I mean, we already are seeing people being automated out of their jobs. And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. I mean, I think just the fact that we have, China doing most of the production, and there's little to no factories here for stuff like that in America. I mean,
but even if we brought those jobs back, it wouldn't really fix anything because, again, you would have the problem of eventually machines doing all that work. The only reason it's over in China right now is because of the cost effectiveness of the cheap labor that they have there. But, because it's more cost effective than, building a bunch of robots in the States. But honestly, if they were forced to bring those jobs back to the states, you would see that drive towards automation go a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you have means of production that are privately owned, the people that own those means of production are greedy, and they're not going to want to pay. They're going to want to pay as few employees as possible. So
I gotta run to Taco Bell.
Yeah.
What? Okay, I guess. I'm gonna end the podcast soon. I'm just gonna wait for him to come back. All right. Yeah. So we'll see.
But yeah, that's kind of the problem. Is even if you were to bring all that back, it's only going to be temporary.
God damn it.
He said he's going to Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
Oh, that makes sense. They don't
Yeah.
deliver in this area. Oh, there he is in the corner.
Yeah. I
Bruce
guess.
Lee.
I guess we're just gonna go ahead and end the podcast. So, I do want to say thank you guys for.
Jackass! I don't.
I'm.
Okay.
I guess a lot of things are going on around right now. So,
I apologize. This is really informal. That's what happens when we schedule a podcast last minute, I guess.
Yeah, it's all right. I do want to say thank you guys for joining me. This was fun. I'm glad the podcast lasted longer than an hour. So thank you guys for sticking around for that long.
Yeah, anytime, man.
So
If you're looking for return or repeat performances,
Yeah.
like Justin knows how to get through to me.
Tell to. Okay.
What?
I was asking who the host was of the podcast.
Chris.
Me.
Or Kai2 Karma.
Okay.
Yeah, it's KEI, the number 2, and then Kurama. But yeah, thank you guys. And for YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you again next time.
And if you know where my shoes are, that would help. YouTube, if you know where my shoes are, that would be great.
They're right there, man. I can see them from the camera. Yeah. Check over there. Check over there by the brown thing.
Brown thing.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
What brown thing?